This is the podcast for women who want to create careers and lives they love. I'm your host, Heather Fincher. Welcome to the Powerful Professional Women podcast. If you want to create a career and life you love, then you're in the right place. I'm an attorney practicing tax law in Washington, D.C., and I started this podcast because I'm on a quest to learn everything I can from successful professional women, and I want to share that journey with you. I want you to be empowered, informed, and inspired by the women on this podcast because I want us all to win. And every woman's path to success is her own. So take what works for you and set aside the rest. I'm excited to have Judge Elizabeth Copeland here today for part 2 to share her experience and insight into creating a career and life you love. Appointed by 2 presidents, Judge Copeland is shaping our country's tax law while serving a 15-year term as judge at the United States Tax Court. A trailblazer in the legal community, Judge Copeland has impacted thousands of people who need legal representation but can't afford counsel, and she's received numerous awards as a top attorney. Welcome, Judge Copeland. I'm so grateful to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Heather. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be participating in this very important message.
Thank you. I love having you. So, in our first episode together, you shared your stories and gave us actionable insights on self-confidence. And in this episode, I'm excited to hear more. Let's talk about powerfully creating careers and lives we love. So, speaking of self-confidence, I have to invite you to share and start with something fun. So, I remember we were both at a tax conference. And it was day 2, and I had just come down the stairs to start a new day. And there you were in this gorgeous suit with ladybugs on it, with like beautiful red shoes. And you probably thought I was crazy, but I came down the stairs and I was like, wow, you look amazing. I'd love your insight and your views about style as a professional woman.
Well, thank you for that, Heather. Appreciate it. I had mentioned in the first podcast that I was Hispanic, and that, as many of you know, Hispanic people tend to like a little flair and particularly I talked a lot about my mother, and my mother was a very important person in my life, and she loved her jewelry. And so I think it just fell off on me. I like to dress up and have a little fun. So when I got on the bench, I'm a United States Tax Court judge, and when I got on the bench, I decided the black robe was a little boring, and so like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I thought I wanted to have some statement. So I always have a statement necklace on top of my robe, and I am wearing one for you here today, so you can see what I'm talking about. But I like to make a little bit of impact and have a little bit of personality in what I wear and, how I convey my message.
I love that so much. And for anyone who's listening on the podcast, this is recorded on YouTube as well. So you can jump over and see this gorgeous statement necklace that the judge is wearing right now. So jump into another question. So what have you said or done something that's made, I know you shared a story in part 1, but when have you said or done something that's made a difference for another woman? Tell us something else.
Absolutely. And I did share a story about convincing a woman to get out there and give a speech. But I also want to share a story that ties back into the tax court pro bono program that I was very instrumental in creating for the State Bar of Texas. I mentioned that the American Bar Association was encouraging other state bars to try to take that on. And I was approached at a conference by a woman who was trying to get her state bar to adopt the program and was facing a lot of resistance. And so I just told her, you don't need your state bar. You just need a nonprofit willing to sponsor you. And I will give you all of the materials and all of the sample emails and all of the information you need to get it started. So she grabbed on to my materials, and she did. She started her own expert pro bono calendar call program, that's what we call them, where we provide representation to unrepresented taxpayers who show up before the United States tax.
Yes, absolutely. And interestingly, it's kind of there's similar themes to when you were encouraging a younger woman or more junior attorney to, even if it's scary and feels awful, to challenge yourself, go speak at a conference, go put yourself out there. Here, you're saying, you can do this on, like, dig deep inside of yourself, take these, this template that I've created basically, but go create this, even if it's scary to do on your own or outside of on a built-in community in a way. But I just love your message to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So jump to I'd love to hear more about personal relationships, family, getting a little more personal and family. How do these relationships play a part in your life as a professional, as a judge?
So I think family and your personal relationships are extremely important. I think you need to make time for your family. You know, make time for your children and your husband. And I have 3 beautiful children that I'm very proud of. And I made sure that I attended all of their sporting events and all of their band events, and just had to do that. But what I'd like to share with the female attorneys out there that are doing this balancing act is just to cut yourself a little slack, because it both your career and your family life can be demanding, and you have to do the best that you can. I like to give the example of, if your child is struggling in math, you can go hire a math tutor, and it doesn't have to be you sitting there at the dining room table, making sure that they get past that struggle. And so the thing I would share also regarding family is, it's really a good idea to be a good listener, to hear your children's concerns, hear your husband's concerns, and try to address them. And in our profession, we do a lot of talking as attorneys. So sometimes it's a really good idea to step back and just listen.
That's beautiful advice, and so important, and really we give so much in our work for any profession. We give so much of our time and energy and focus and emotional energy, so that it's such a good reminder to make sure that we're giving to in our homes, giving and valuing the people closest to us and our families and friends with that gift of listening in a way. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'd love to give you some space to share give us some advice, Judge. Let's start with your peers. What advice or insight could you give to some of the professional women who are your peers?
I would recommend, I've already talked about a good listener, but I would recommend self-advocating. So what I see in particular is, I saw this a lot when I was on the management committee of my old law firm. And I would see men come in there and take credit for stuff they didn't do. And also just demand that what they did do, got recognized, both in a position of making partner or in salary, right? And I would more often than I like to admit, see women selling themselves short. And so I recommend to anyone out there, just become your own self-advocate. Have the self-confidence to tell people about your accomplishments and why they're valuable to your employer, your current law firm, or otherwise. You really have to be your own champion.
Oh, that's so, so important. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so hard to do for some of us.
It's outside your comfort zone, but you have to have the self-confidence to do it.
But again, there we go. Have the self-confidence. That's right. That's right. Thank you. And looking at your success, what are 3 keys to your success is what I'd love to hear. But inside of, like, what other insights would you like to share with us?
So I think the 3 keys to my success is, I'm very driven. I already mentioned I don't take no for an answer very often. I'm very patient. And I really don't anger easily. I have the ability, I believe, to listen to other people's viewpoints and take them into consideration without taking it personally. And that kind of goes back to the self-confidence issue that you're talking about as well. So I will say, again, I was a practicing tax attorney, and one of the things that helps your career is developing a client base. And so what I did that required a little drive and patience was, I approached my local CPA Society, the local certified public accountants in my area in San Antonio, Texas. And I let them know that I was happy to give speeches to the local CPAs on tax topics because I was a local tax attorney in the area. And so every single time Congress would pass a new tax law, I would call them up and say, hey, there's new tax law just hit the books. Do you have a speaker? Do you need a speaker? And I would say almost always, just latch on and let me come and speak to the group. That's the drive part. The patience is knowing and waiting for the results of that. And it took years and years, but I have numerous examples of when I had been speaking and somebody realized I was an expert in tax law. And so then came to me when their client had a tax issue, especially if it was a litigation issue, a tax court litigation matter. And I even had a situation in which I had given a speech and their young associate was in the audience when I had given that speech to the CPA Society. And 10 years later, client had an unrelated tax issue that the senior partner at the firm came to me to help with, to hire us to represent the client. And he said, my young associate went to your speech 10 years ago. He was, of course, the young associate was by then a partner. And he told me that you were really good and you might be able to help us. And so that's a key to patience, I think, as well. So I thought that'd be a good example for people to think about. But it's whatever your particular drive is and talent and area of employment, you should really think about how you can leverage that and have the drive to do it and the patience to make it happen and just keep trying.
Yes, absolutely. So digging into your passion a little bit, why don't you share what's your first litigation experience, Judge? I want to thank this episode's sponsor, Castellanos LLP, a leading law firm in tax controversy, white-collar criminal defense, and government negotiations with offices in New York City and Washington, D.C. Visit www.kflaw.com.
That was fun. And so I was just a 2-year associate at my law firm, and we had a client came to me who had a what we call an innocent spouse case. Basically, she was being held liable for some mistake on the tax return that she had nothing to do with. And so I took the case all the way to tax court as a 2-year associate, which is unheard of. And all my partners at the law firm were sitting in the audience, which is a little bit intimidating. But the particular woman I was representing was actually also a female attorney. And so the odds were very stacked against us that she wouldn't know what was going on with this return. But I will tell you that we won. And that was just a fabulous experience. And I loved every bit of it.
What a great accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to say one other thing about that one. When I finished the tax court trial, the IRS attorney said she needed to talk to her manager and turned around and came to me and said they were conceding the case. So I won it right then and there.
Oh, wow. Wow. Looking back at that experience, Judge, what did you draw on within yourself? Like what did it take? What can you point to for someone who's taking on a first in her career?
I was overprepared. I knew every single aspect of the case. I knew the law. I had every angle thought through and evaluated. And so I think that you really, although I know we have very busy lives, you definitely need to be prepared for whatever tasks you're taking on and do the best you can to get yourself prepared. There might be things that catch you off guard and shock you and you don't realize, and you could go learn from that mistake and fix it later.
Yes. And I love that with your earlier advice to challenge, like put ourselves out there to challenge ourselves to take on something difficult hand in hand with be really prepared to succeed and really analyze what you might face in that and to set ourselves up for success.
Absolutely. And not ever losing sight of it's okay to make a mistake. And
No, thank you. Yeah.
so we need to learn from our mistakes and we need to embrace them. We need to own them and learn from them and then move on and
Hmm.
not beat yourself up.
Is there a time where you could share, did you make a mistake somewhere along your career and how did you recover and move forward? Or what was a difficult time that you faced and how you overcame it?
So as I mentioned earlier with my tax court nomination in our first part of the episode, I had to overcome the adversity of having my tax court nomination under President Obama expire and had to face the reality that if that may have been the end of that and I would never be a tax court judge. And yet I still drew upon the resources that I had and the context that I had to try to get renominated and was successful. And I was one of very, very few judges who were initially nominated by Obama that were renominated by Trump.
I feel like so often we can take it personally or think, well, it was meant to be and we shouldn't really try again. Like, what is it that you relied on or how did you overcome that?
So I think I mentioned that I tend to be a very positive person. I'm a half full glass kind of person. And so I always try to look for the um, positive things I can draw on in my lives, the things that give me, that help me get through the day and that give me pleasure and joy. And so I feel like that has a lot of it. And really, it's hard for everyone. And this is something you had asked me before. What would I tell my younger self? I think you tell your younger self not to get discouraged. Make sure you uh, pull from your life's experiences, learn from your mistakes, and move on. And also have the self confidence to try new things.
Yes, thank you. Why don't we wrap up this episode with a fun question? How speaking of joy, you mentioned joy. How do you refresh? How do you incorporate play and fun into your life, Judge Copeland?
So I make sure that I take trips with my girlfriends and I have dinners with them. And so whenever I'm in a new city, I mentioned in part one of the podcast that the United States Tax Court travels throughout the United States to various cities. And so quite a few actually. And so whenever I'm out on session, I try to find people that I friends from my past, friends from currently, and just connect with them and try to make time to go to dinner or at least have a little fun and catch up, maybe coffee, maybe dinner. But whenever I'm in a new city, if I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that, I do. Mhm.
Oh, that's so great. It's gotta be so refreshing and totally fun. It's so
Yes.
it's so great. When I travel, I'm learning, like, I need to do that more to really be to intentionally plan and set up that experience, to incorporate things like play and fun and connection with people. And so that's a great encouragement. Thank you.
Connection with people is very important, and you never know. You never know when that might help you in the future. You can make a connection with somebody. You could have helped somebody and you didn't even realize you helped them. And then play it forward, they help you. And that definitely happened to me with connections through the section of taxation of the American Bar Association when I needed to be renominated. That was huge.
Yes, absolutely. Beautiful. You're amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Judge Copeland, for being on the podcast. I'm personally grateful for all you've courageously shared. And thank you to each one of our listeners and those watching on YouTube. I hope you leave this episode inspired and empowered. Let's get out there and create careers and lives we love.